Right, welcome to the next video. In this video, what I'd like to achieve is just raise your awareness of the account heads that is used. Some of them are set up by default, and when you set up your ERPNext, you need to be aware of this. I'm going to just quickly highlight one or two places just to, and these are by no means comprehensive ones. For instance, if you've got, let's rather go to stock. You've got your items. All right, let's just, right, and each of these items has got a default stores and a default cost center and a default expense account. All right, you need to set that up. For instance, under item, stock item groups, you can say your raw material is the default stores is that, and your all the default values would be under that drop down. All right, now I haven't set this up on this particular server of mine, but be aware of this. You don't have to. You'll always be able to set that up once you do your transactions. Okay, let's get to the and as we do the purchase invoice and purchase order, you'll notice on the other videos that I also make, whenever you draw up your invoice, there's always this little drop downs here. Go into that and have a look at the cost center, the accounts, the account heads that you need to set up. Make sure that that is correctly set up. All right, let's get to the actual point I want to make. And that is that you don't have to always use the default accounts. By way of example, I'm going to show this to you, and this is when you import something, VAT. Now, if you look at your chart of accounts, there's a VAT account there under liabilities. Now, typically, if you VAT registered, VAT is an in and out. Okay, you pay VAT, you claim that back, and the VAT that you charge your customers, you pay as it's not a cost. All right. So it doesn't have to appear on your profit loss statement. And indeed, if you look at the VAT, where it appears on your balance sheet. All right, there it needs to appear. But now when you are not VAT registered, your VAT that you pay is a definite expense. It's money that's out of your pocket, and somehow you need to make sure that you keep track of that. Now, one way of doing this is to make sure that it lands up under your expenses, because your expenses, if you look at this cost of goods sold, is reported under your profit loss report. All right, and that's exactly where you want it. So what I did is I actually created another VAT account under direct expenses, and I've called it 5117 customs VAT for stock imports. And I can now use that account, because typically the default account, whenever you work with VAT on your purchase orders and your purchase invoices, it will by default select this. So you need to go and select the account that you've created. So let's have a look at an example. So I want to raise a purchase invoice. I've already done a couple of these, as you may see that I'm playing around with. I'm raising a new purchase invoice. All right, and the supplier obviously would be DHL. Right, and there is a supplier invoice 204668, some number, and let's make it today's date. Okay. We're not working with stock, so we're not updating the stock. Now what I've done, there's two things that needs to be entered here. Is your VAT, and then of course the fee that DHL is going to charge you for handling the customs clearance. All right, there's a fee that they charge over and above the courier fee that you've already paid via the supplier. Now the way I've handled it is to say, okay, well, I've got a general expense item number, which is a service and another stock item, but it's still under my item list. And I called it DHL disbursement fees, which is a service. All right, so it's not stock maintained. You can't, let me go and show you just quickly what it looks like. If you go and look at stock item and you punch in there services, all the services items appear there, DHL disbursement fees. It's not a stock item, you don't include it in manufacturing, and you don't sell it. All right, so there's a few settings here that you need to just make sure is set up correctly. New purchase invoice, we go back there. Right, so I've selected that, quantity 1. This value is just how I've been practicing beforehand. Of course, you can now type in the value there if it's a different value. Now, what are we going to do here? The drop down, and we make sure all these fields are filled in correctly. All right. Now, the item, I've preloaded with freight and forwarding charges. All right, the DHL, where's that? This disbursement fees, this item I set up default as the expense head to be freight and forwarding charges. Can you see it's important to set these things? It wouldn't have been wrong if this may have just been blank. Then you can select it here. So it's not a train smash, but it just makes it easier. If you decide beforehand, this item I'm going to use that expense account, this item I'm going to use that expense account. So if you can do it beforehand, this looks fine, 180 Rand. Yeah, that's fine. Right, so that's the DHL fees. Now for the VAT. Now typically you've got a template. You're not going to use that. We add a row, all right, and here we say, what is it? What account head are we going to use? Now if you drop that down, typically you would have been confronted with VAT. But that's a 2300 account number. You want in the 52s because the 52s are your expenses. All right, so now I can select the one that I've created, customs VAT for stock imports. I must just also show you how you make sure that it appears in this list. I'll show you just now. That's very important. Make a note of that, because the fact that you create that account, there's a field in that creation process that you need to set, otherwise it's not going to be visible here. So you select that. Oh, okay. First of all, you say it's an actual. If you say on net total, it'll calculate a VAT based on the 180 Rand. So you say actual, and then we get to the account head, and you can just customs for import from ABC Electronics or something like this. Electronics. Goodness gracious, I can't spell. Trying to type too fast. All right, the amount, let's say 2,350 Rand. All right. And that's how you do that. Okay, so there you've got your DHL fees plus your VAT. Let's just see if there's anything else that needs to be filled in. No. All right, and that's how you create your purchase invoice and how you make sure that the correct account heads are set. So there you save that and you submit that. Did I submit that? I think I double clicked there and this, right. Okay, now it says unpaid, and now of course you can go ahead and pay it. I'm not going to do that. You know how that's already done. Let me just go and show you an important thing, chart of accounts. I should have highlighted that right from the start. If you click on the account that you've just created, just remember when you create it to make that chargeable. All right. Otherwise, you won't be able to select that on a purchase invoice or a purchase order as an account. Right. Hope that gives you a little bit of a kickstart to go and have a look at your own system and see how you can adjust it to use non-standard expense accounts. See you in the next video.